Hey folks, welcome back. My name is Cyrus Davis, and today I have another deck profile for you from the Prismatic Evolutions format, this time on Gardevoir EX. So I have made some content on this deck already. I played a mirror match that you can view on my channel. I also played and won a tournament with a list that was very similar to this one very early on in the format. And I also released an article for the Shuffle Squad Metafy page on with 5 Gardevoir EX deck lists with all different ace specs, and talked about why the pros and cons of each ace spec and why I think Secret Box is the strongest one. But today I just wanted to talk to you about my updated Guardy list and some of its matchups and why the deck is so strong in this format, and why I like this list so much, because this list is not very similar to what most people are playing right now. My friend Dennis Paroff made day 2 with a list that was, I believe, 1 card off of this one. I gave him the list with a Klefki instead of Mawile. You can see the list that he played at on Limitless on the Merida day 2 page, but he didn't want to play Klefki, so I told him to play Mawile instead, and he ended up coming 100th. Said he could have probably tightened his play a little bit in day 2 to give the deck a bit of a stronger finish, but still a solid day 2 finish with the deck. I think the list is really strong, and I'm still very confident in it. I think there was more debate before Merida Regionals under whether Heroes Cape or Secret Box was the better ace spec. Obviously, there are other ace specs in that discussion as well, but those are the big 2 for me that I was debating. And now that Heroes Cape has been popularized and Lost Vacuum in Dragapult has been popularized, I'm no longer a fan of Heroes Cape. I think that, to me, that ends the debate. I think that a lot more people will play Vacuum going forward, especially in their Dragapult lists, which makes Heroes Cape a lot less valuable, but definitely certainly a strong option still. But with that being said, let's go into this list and why I like it so much. Starting with the Pokemon. We have 4-4-2 Gardevoir EX line. This is in every Gardevoir build. You want to have the maximum count of Ralts and Kirlias, and you only need 2 Gardevoir EX. You play multiple recovery cards. As long as you only need 1 Gardevoir EX per game, really. So as long as you don't prize double Gardevoir, you are fine. Same reason that you play, only 2 Pidgeot EX and Pidgeot EX decks, because you are not very likely to prize both if you play 2. Then we play 2 cards of Munkidori that are journey ability, healing up off the damage that we put on our Pokemon with Psychic Brace, allowing us to heal our Pokemon while doing damage to our opponent's Pokemon at the same time. Very, very crucial in Gardevoir. Keeps our Gardevoir EX healthy. Gardevoir EX is the main attacker for the deck in this format, and we would just want to be using Adrenaline Brain to make sure that our Gardevoir has lots of HP and is bumping that Miracle Force damage up to enough to knock out key Pokemon. I'm playing the 1 copy of Drifloon in this list because we're not playing Heroes Cape, so we need a way to take one-shots, especially on a Pokemon like Dragapult or Charizard, but even on, 280 HP V-Star Pokemon, or like Ceruledge, Pidgeot, anything with a lot of HP, it's very important to have a way to one-shot with Balloon Blast, or just with a single prizer in general. Even if we could get there with Gardevoir, sometimes it's better to just Balloon Blast. And of course we have Screamtail, another staple in Gardevoir, to snipe our opponent's bench Pokemon. Then we have the one of Cresselia. This is mostly a tech for the Mirror and the Dragapult matchup. I guess around Manaphy, it allows us to still kill our opponent's Kirlias. Also doesn't put a Screamtail in the active, which has 40 damage on it in the Mirror, which is really good if we think our opponent could pull off double Munkidori on their next turn, because then they could just move 60 damage and take the easy knockout on our Screamtail that has 40 damage on it from killing a Kirlia. If we can do it with Cress instead reliably and comfortably, then we don't risk giving up that free prize. And then, of course, against Dragapult, it allows us to keep our board healthy from Phantom Dives. Sometimes, if your opponent goes 30-30 on 2 bench Pokemon with their Phantom Dive, you can Adrenaline Brain it all off, but maybe you only have 1 Munkidori set up, or maybe you need to put some energy onto your Gardevoir, some extra damage there to retreat it. Whatever the situation may be, there's a lot of times where your opponent can either Phantom Dive in interesting ways that make Moonglow Reverse more necessary because they spread their damage around so that it can't all be healed with Adrenaline Brain, or you just already have extra damage on board that you also want to heal, and you just want to keep your board as healthy as possible against Dragapult to make sure that they can't take too many multi-prize turns. Then the one of Mawile, Toning Trap, good in a lot of situations, can even just be used to buy time in combination with Iono if our opponent doesn't find a switching card. I actually have lost the game in the mirror of this because my opponent Iono'd Tempting Trap my Gardevoir EX in the active spot when they missed knockout, and then I didn't find my Turo off the Iono to pick my Gardevoir EX up, and then they were able to Miracle Force with Adrenabrain to knock out my Gardevoir EX on their next turn. So there's often a lot of cool plays that you can make with Tempting Trap, but primarily it is a tech for the Miraidon matchup. They only play one switch card, so if they get the first 2 prize cards, they just go like turn 1, empty very much. You ideally just Mawile, bring up something that can't attack, Tempting Trap it, they switch card out of the active, take another 2 prize cards, and then you just Tempting Trap again on the same Pokemon. And then if you have more cards remaining in your deck than they do, then they will just deck out first, or you can even just use Psychic Embrace to put a bunch of energy and damage on your board, Adrenabrain it all off to your opponent's side, Turo, so that the Pokemon with all the energy on it, so that the energy goes to the discard pile, and then re-put all of the energy back into play, and Adrenabrain all the damage off again, Turo again, and do that until you have knocked out 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, and then use Miracle Force to take your last 2 prize cards. So you can just take a 6 prize turn while buying time with Tempting Trap. Your opponent can't attack the entire time you're doing this, and you have double Turo and Pal Pad, so you can do tons and tons of damage with just Psychic Embrace, Adrenabrain, Turo, and well, locking your opponent up with Tempting Trap. Then we do play the 1 copy of Budew. This list is a lot less reliant on EVO TM and a lot less reliant on going second. We actually don't mind going first at all in this list, and we'd use Itchy Pollen a lot more than other lists. I personally think that people underestimate the effect of Budew a lot. I think they're scared to go for it. I think that there's so many situations and so many matchups where going for Budew is a very, very strong play. Even in situations, there are lots of situations where, your opponent might even be able to, like, Phantom Dive. For sure, they already have, like, a Dracloak with energy on it. They're probably just going to Phantom Dive me if I use Itchy Pollen here. But sometimes what you need to do to stay in the game is just, like, prevent them from also getting Dusknoirs at the same time. So there's lots of use cases for Itchy Pollen, especially when you go first and you just go, like, ideally you're still opting second with this list, but if you're forced to go first, like you hit Mirror, you lose Flip, or Dragapult, and you just go turn 1, get some Ralts down, turn 2, evolve them into Kirlias, because you don't need to Evo. If you go first, you can just research, find some Kirlias, evolve a couple, Itchy Pollen your opponent, and then you get to item lock and you don't even have to use the EVO TM. Then the Radiant Greninja, pretty staple in Gardevoir. I mean, some people don't play it. I know the top 8 list actually didn't play it, played Fezandipity instead, but I still love Greninja. I think just helps you get Psychic Energy and discard pile early, and helps you with really bad turn 1s. Then I'm playing the Manaphy. I actually played Spiritomb in the list for a long time. It was one of the only changes that I've made, and one that I made very recently. After testing the Lugia matchup a ton in the last week or two, I found that most games I was losing weren't, because my opponent got a good start. It was just because my opponent had Wellspring and was just, able to capitalize, maybe, boss my Kirlia, knock out double Kirlia. I was finding I was losing games because of Wellspring way more often. As long as I set up, it's usually, a fine matchup, even without Spiritomb. So I just wanted to have the Manaphy to protect against that. Obviously, Manaphy has other case uses. I found, even, against Ruled, sometimes I randomly lose to that because I get, turn 2 Moonlight Shuriken and just, don't draw anything after that, and lose both my Kirlias right away. In Mirror, obviously, it has some use as well. Typically, if you can, you'd rather just set up another Kirlia rather than put a Manaphy down in Mirror, because if they're killing Kirlias, and if they're only killing 1 Kirlia at a time, right? So, why would I put a Manaphy down when I could just get another Kirlia out? And that sort of does the same thing. But if you have a slower start in Mirror, and, let's say you only find 2 Ralts, 2 Kirlia, then it makes more sense. But, if you can get the Manaphy down, then you can at least make sure that you have multiple Kirlias in play. So the Manaphy does have use there in Mirror. It's okay, well, if I could get another Kirlia down, that's something better. But sometimes all you can do is bench a Manaphy and just protect the Kirlias that you already have. Also, Gouging Fire having come second, that matchup's pretty bad, and part of the reason is that they can Delphox turn 1, so having the Manaphy, the matchup's still unfavorable, but it definitely improves the matchup a lot, preventing the Delphox option. So Manaphy, a lot of, I'm sure there's other ones that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but Manaphy definitely worth it right now in my opinion, especially over Spiritomb, just because I think it is the better Lugia tech. Supporters, 3 copies of Iono. This list is a little bit different than most, so we're just playing the 3 copies. We have a Pal Pad in here, so we can get them back late game if we need. But we're trying to use research turn early into mid game rather than Iono usually. So we're only playing the 3 copies. 2 copies of Arven, same reason. We're a little bit less reliant on Arven. it's still important to have that option for searching out specific items at the right times. Rare Candy, it's going to be great to grab Secret Box turn 1, and grab like Poffin Artazon off of Secret Box plus supporter for next turn, and EVO. Or find like Rare Candy at the right time, find the Ultra Ball for the Guardy, find Poffin turn 1. Obviously Arven is still an incredible card in the deck, but we're pretty content to go for like Research instead if we have Research in the opening hand over Arven. Just a lot more aggressive. Allows us to like make a lot stronger plays and is way more consistent if our opponent does use Issue Pollen early game. As much as Issue Pollen doesn't feel great against Gardevoir a lot of the time, and a lot of people might be hesitant to go for Issue Pollen against Gardevoir because you can take a free prize on it with Munkidori eventually. Honestly, there are like Gardevoir only plays 2 Gardevoir EX and 2 Ultra Ball, so like it's not as easy as you might think to just like draw Gardevoir EX or draw your Kirlias under item lock. Like people really underestimate how strong Budew is. Like obviously you don't want to use it every game. If you can just prioritize setting up, you should. But like going for Budew, sometimes you don't have anything else. You Budew your opponent Budews you, and you don't find the Gardevoir EX. So yeah, I like having more options if my opponent does go for Issue Pollen. Double Turo, been pretty stable in this format. Actually really nice with Budew as well. If your opponent, a lot of times your opponent will like try to go for the like knock out your other stuff. They don't want to deal with the Budew right away because it's not much of a threat past the first couple of turns. So they'll try to like target down your like Kirlias on the bench and stuff like that. And so then you can just like throw the Budew out of play before they can take the easy prize on it and then like bench Munkidori. You can use your Turos a lot more flexibly in this deck. You can use it for not like you don't have to save them for healing as often because you have the Pal Pad. But 2 Turo definitely still like it just has so much use cases in this deck, whether it be healing your Gardevoir EX. A lot of decks can't one-shot it easily, or getting liabilities out of play like Budew or Greninja so that you can fit more of the correct Pokemon on your board. Or even just resetting a Munkidori so that you can just go Turo Munkidori, attach Dark Energy to it. A lot of time you can pull off like a triple Munkidori play that way. If you started the turn with 2 Munkidori with Dark Energy already in play, use double Agenda Brain, Turo one of them, Night Stretcher for the Dark Energy back, or just have the third Dark, reattach it, and then Agenda Brain a third time. So Turo allows you to do a lot of really strong plays with the deck. 2 Professor's Research. Like I said, we're playing this deck a lot more aggressively. I know a lot of players have been liking the slow guardy build. I think especially with how well Miraidon did. I think like against Lugia as well, how well Gouging did. I think people are really sleeping on aggressive decks. I mean, a lot of people are hyping up Regidrago going in upcoming events after the results of Merida. So I think it makes sense, even if we weren't before, to be prepping for the more aggressive decks. I also generally think that like I understand that like people want to play the slow guardy build because it's like better. People like it for mirror, like just like having a consistent setup into mirror or Dragapult, which are obviously 2 of, if not the most popular decks right now, or at least going into Merida regionals. But those matchups like are fine even with this build. I find mirror completely fine. I have never had problems winning mirror with this list. I don't feel like the techs make that massive a difference. I feel like honestly, the mirror and the Dragapult matchups are matchups where, like, in my opinion, the better player usually wins, regardless of, like, 1 or 2 cute techs. So I find just being more consistent is usually the way to go. Like, okay, you have a Flutter Mane and a Devo, cute, but I am just going to outdraw you. I'm just going to be more consistent. I'm going to set up more Kirlias. I'm going to draw better, and that is why I'm going to win, even without the like, cute tech cards. And then in your worse matchups, which typically are like Miraidon, or like Gouging Fire, other aggressive decks, is better, or Regidrago. Those are the matchups that are actually like tricky. Those are the matchups that you want to be more prepared for. So playing the more aggressive build to have better matchups into those just like makes the most sense to me. And then we have a single copy of boss orders. Of course, we want to have a way to have access to our most bench Pokemon. One boss is the pretty much like in every single Gardevoir list is 1 boss, no more, no less. We are playing a Pal Pad in this list, like I mentioned before, so we can actually use 2 boss a game, which can be really nice, especially in slower matchups like Guardian Mirror or Dragapult, where both players are trying to sort of play around each other's counter catchers as much as possible. 4 copies of Buddy-Buddy Poffin. Obviously, just want to get our Ralts out really quickly. 2 copies of Ultra Ball, just to have ways to get some Psychic Energy in this pile and search for our Kirlias and Gardevoirs. 2 copies of Night Stretcher. In my opinion, the much better than Super Rod. It's just so important to get the Pokemon straight to hand a lot of the time. Obviously, like with refinements and search cards, you do have a lot of ways to get Pokemon back if you shuffle them back in. But a lot of time you need to just like put the Pokemon in the hand. It's just so much more consistent. Can be an energy for concealed cards in a pinch. Can get you energy for Evo in a pinch. Can get you the Dark Energy back from Munkidori right away. So much more consistent. And I think that 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Super Rod is just like very clean. I don't think you need to go overzealous and play 2 Super Rod, 1 Night Stretcher. I think that's more recovery than you need. 2 Night Stretcher, Super Rod, as long as you manage it correctly, is almost always enough. 2 copies of Earthen Vessel, find our Psychics and Dark Energies. We never want to prize or only 1. I think that like you probably could get away with 1, but 2 is just going to be more consistent anyways, and you don't want to prize it. So definitely worth playing 2 here. Honestly, I've kind of wanted 3 in lists at time. 3rd Vessel, 3 Ultra Ball. It's definitely a luxury that you don't need, but when I can fit a 3rd Vessel or 3rd Ultra Ball, it definitely feels more consistent. So it is. I would never probably go below 2 personally. 2 Counter Catcher, Staple, and Gardevoir. I've seen some lists with 1, and I really don't like it. I think that you definitely need to, especially for any of your close matchups. You really want to be counter catching a lot. You want to be able to like sort of discard a counter catcher if you need to, especially since this displays double research Secret Box. Sometimes you have to discard stuff you don't want to a bit more. You can't really afford to get greedy with your counts of your resource cards like that. And especially if you're trying to go for the Mawile trap plan against Miraidon, these counter catchers are going to be even more important, because you're going to need to hit them at the right times. And then, of course, that one of Secret Box as the A-Spec. I think this is the most consistent A-Spec. I think that, like, for early game, like, Precious Trolley can be a really strong option if you just want to, like, have the strongest turn 1 setup as often as possible. But Secret Box still can do a similar thing if you find it turn 1, like Precious Trolley. You can just, like, Secret Box for Poff and Artazon. That grabs you 3 Pokemon. You can also grab the Evo, or you can grab Vessel. But Secret Box has way more options. Like, if you find it turn 2, you can use it the same way that you kind of use Hyper Aroma and use it to help, you can grab like a Research and Ultra Ball for a Kirlia, Research, try to find more Kirlias. And then, of course, it just has way more play after that point as well. In the mid-game, it's really strong to just find exactly the plays you need. Helps you get your Monkey set up, helps you get Rare Candy. And then the late game helps you find, like, Turo at exactly the right time. Helps you find, like, the Drifloon Bravery Charm play. What I like about Secret Box over something like any of the other consistency item or A-Specs is that it is a consistency boost literally at any point that you draw it. Whether it be early game, turn 1, turn 2, mid game, late game, you're always like, you can always do something crazy with Secret Box. You can always pull off a big play with Secret Box. And that is what I love about it. It's just so consistent throughout the entire game. Then, of course, that 1 copy of Super Rod, as much as 2 Night Stretcher, even a 3rd Night Stretcher would be cool. You do need 1 way to, like, I think, just shuffle a few things back, especially if you have to make some tough discards early game. 1 of Rare Candy. So, with this list going for Budew a little bit more often and being less reliant on Evo, we can also find the Rare Candy a lot more often with Secret Box Double Research. So, I really like the 1 of Rare Candy. That way, if I go for Itchy Pollen, turn 1 going second, I can still put the pressure on of threatening a turn 2 Gardevoir EX. Obviously, you're not always going to hit it after you Itchy Pollen, but the fact that I can Itchy Pollen and then next turn go like Rare Candy, Gardevoir, Kirlia, it's just so incredibly powerful. It's just such a strong option. It also means that I'm never out of the game, even if I have like a bad start and my opponent knocks out like my only Kirlia in play. I still like might be able to just find Candy Gardevoir. It keeps me in the game. It gives you more options. Allows you to make plays that you wouldn't otherwise be able to make. And I think that is just incredibly valuable. I think that there are so many games that Rare Candy wins you that are games that like you otherwise would have so much lower of a chance of winning. 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball. Obviously, we play some. We don't really want to prize any of our Pokemon. There's certain matchups where some of them are okay to prize, but like we don't want to prize anywhere else. We don't want to prize our 1 of Screamtail when we need it, or 1 of Drifloon when we need it. So very important to have Heavy Ball in the deck. And then the 1 of Pal Pad. Pal Pad is an interesting card. I know a lot of people don't like to play it. I think that with 2 Research and Secret Box, you have like if you want to play as aggressively as possible, you want to be researching. You don't want to be like scared to research away Turo boss and build a big lead. You want to be able to just do that and then be like, okay, well my Pal Pad's still in deck. I just Pal Pad in the back later when I need them, because you usually don't need those cards until late game a lot of the time. So you'll have time to find your Pal Pad. And So with the Secret Box Double Research, I love being able to play more aggressively. I love having that Pal Pad so that I can feel more confident playing aggressively. And then, of course, in games where you don't have to discard stuff that you need, you just get that sort of like bonus. Like Pal Pad's still a great card to have. There are a lot of games where having more than 2 Turo uses is incredible. It gives you like a free Snorlax matchup. Being able to Pal Pad double Turo back in is crazy against Snorlax. And then being able to Pal Pad and use Boss twice in a game is also like super, super good. People really underestimate how strong it can be to use Boss twice in a game, especially if your opponent is really, really good. I think that like the better your opponent is, the more that like they'll try to play around Counter Catcher, and the more that Pal Pad for Boss play late game can really be like what changes the entire dynamic of the match. Something else I really like about Pal Pad in this list is that with the Double Research Secret Box, we're usually obviously all Gardevoir lists can do this to some extent, but this deck, more than any other Gardevoir build, can usually draw to the very bottom of its deck by the end of the game. And so that means that if you use Pal Pad, like the turn before you're going to win, you can like Pal Pad, Research, or Boss, or Turo in, whatever you need to draw next turn to play around Iono, and just like make sure that you're definitely going to hit what you need next turn. Next, Stadiums, Tools, and Energy. Played 2 copies of Artazon. Those are the only stadiums in the deck. I did play 1 Moonlight Hill for a while, and I like it, but I think that other cards are just more important. So we're just playing the 2 Artazon. It's important to have some more Pokemon search off of Budew. It's important to have like consistent, like anytime Artazon 6, it's really nice because you can just keep using it every single turn. Usually you want to keep finding new attackers every turn, whether it be if you're going for like a mirror, you're like attacking with Scream Tail multiple turns in a row, or your opponent's like targeting down your monkeys, you need to keep getting more monkeys out. Artazon just a very nice consistency card in general. And then of course it being Secret Box searchable makes it all the more important. And then 1 of Technical Machine Evolution, we have the 2 Arven and the Secret Box to search for it if we need, but we're only really using it if we go second, which in theory it should only be about 50% of our games. And when we go first with Research, it's pretty easy to like just draw a couple Kirlias turn 2 and then Ichi-Pal in our opponent, and that's usually a lot stronger. So we're only playing the 1, especially because we also have the Rare Candy. I think like if I wasn't playing the Rare Candy, I'd play 2 EVO, just have it more reliably and not prize it. But since we have the Rare Candy option, if we in a pinch, it kind of makes up for this only single EVO a lot of time. I honestly like. People like get worried about prizing it. I'm confident that I can win in games where I prize the EVO just fine. I think that EVO is good in a lot of builds, but I think that this hyper aggressive build just does not need it as much. Second copy of Bravery Charm. We really only need to attack with Drifloon once per game to take a big knockout most of the time. It can be nice in general, just like on other stuff. You can like put stuff out of AP very much range, or do a little bit more damage with Scream Tail, but generally speaking, we really only need 1 Bravery Charm ever to seal games. The second is a luxury in my opinion, and other cards are more important for the consistency of the deck. Then of course 7 Psychic, 3 Dark. This is the standard in Gardevoir. We want to set up 2 Munkidori almost every game, so you should definitely play 3 Dark. You don't want to play 2 prize 1. I think that's unacceptable. And then 7 Psychic is pretty much the standard in every single Gardevoir list. Favorable matchups, Lugia. Of course, especially with the Manaphy, we don't really worry about Wellspring. We just sort of target down their Archeops with Scream Tail, and then Iono them into Oblivion in the late game. Matchup very solid. If they go for hands, we just go for Miracle Force and Iono them. Then we just Adrenabrain to play around Grift Energy and Legacy Energy. It's not like a free matchup by any means, but it's definitely quite favorable. Our Charladon EX, they can't one-shot a Gardevoir EX for the most part. Maybe like once with the Dialga Metal Blast, but it's like pretty hard for them to pull off. We can one-shot them with Drifloon. We play 2 stadiums and another way to search out our stadiums. So as long as we manage our stadiums carefully to play around their couple of copies of Jamming Tower, we should be able to use our Drifloon just fine. And even if we're just going like Gardevoir and trading 2 shots, like we have 2 Turo and Pal Pad as well. So we can just sort of trade 2 shots and do the tank heal strategy just as well as they can, thanks to the Pal Pad. So yeah, the matchup very favorable. We also generally we like Miracle Force, the active, and then we can like set up with Adrenabrains onto their other Pokemon so that their Turos aren't as effective. We can sort of build towards taking a knockout with Miracle Force without giving them the chance to like Turo around it by using Adrenabrains. And then, yeah, so once per game, we're going to go for like a Drifloon, Bravery Charm knockout. And they're pretty weak to Iono late game. Like, even in their best case scenario, usually Iono is pretty strong into them near the end. Cresselia GX, another pretty favorable matchup. We can just Drifloon through the Cresselia. With Manaphy, they don't even have the Palkia Moonlight Shuriken option to take an easy 2 prize cards against us. So we're just able to trade with our 1 prizes very effectively into them. If they bench, they're pretty reliant on 2 prize Pokemon like Lumineon, Pheasantipity, Squawkabilly, which are all free Miracle Force prizes for us. You can also play around Pheasantipity, which, I mean, we pretty much want to do in every matchup. So I probably won't, we'll try not to overdo how much I talk about doing that in each section here. But, you know, using Adrenabrain to take knockout on Pheasantipity the same time that you Iono to make sure that you are playing around Pheasantipity as much as possible, not getting them extra flipped scripts. It's not that easy for them to get to 310 damage. Even if they do, we're still out trading them as long as they have a couple, you know, if they're getting to that damage that quick, they probably have some easy 2 prize liabilities on board. If they go for a Moonlight Shuriken play because we miss Manaphy, then we can sort of trap their Palkia because they can't use Star Portal to set it up, and then we can Iono them to try to make them miss Jet Energy. So yeah, just a lot of ways for the matchup to be swung into our favor. With a couple of Adrenabrains, we can get Miracle Force definitely up to knocking out a Cresselia as well if we have to. Charizard, another favorable matchup. Budew absolutely slams in this matchup. There's still, every Charizard list I've seen is still very item reliant. So Budew is going to slow them down enough for us to get our board set up, and then we can, you know, one-shot a Charizard with Drifloon at some point. We can go ahead and set up Adrenabrain damage on their Pidgeot and Miracle Force them. Honestly, a lot of the time you can like Budew slow them down long enough that you like even just like 1 or 2 turns, you can just like have the time to set up like double Munkidori, a Gardevoir, a couple Kirlias, and then you can just start taking like extra prize cards with Adrenabrains. And that puts you like far enough ahead that you really only need to knock out 1 Charizard a lot of time. If they have to bench like Rotom or Lumineon or Pheasantipity, that's just another free 2 prize cards. If they're playing, I think like the Charizard Dusknoir to Dunsparce build I've been seeing around might be a little bit tougher, but even then, like, Item Lock is still really strong against them. And honestly, I think that deck is, like, still fairly weak to Iono, so. Snorlax, another very favorable matchup. I think that without the Spiritomb with the Manaphy instead, this is definitely a bit worse, because if they're playing the Rotom build. But double Turo and Pal Pad makes that matchup free. As long as they don't discard your Pal Pad, you should be completely fine. Basically, you just want to set up your board with a bunch of Ralts, and then you can Teleportation Burst out of the active. You want to play, like, pretty patiently. I have a video on, like, how to try to win this matchup as consistently as possible as Gardevoir. So go check that out. Basically, you sacrifice one. We only play 1 Bravery Charm, so we can only do it once, but we we sacrifice one of our Kirlias by putting a Bravery Charm on Ralts, putting 4 Psychic Energy on it with Psychic Embrace to do 80 damage to it, and then evolving it to deactivate Bravery Charm, so our opponent has to take prize, and we can Iono them to 5 every time we Iono instead of Ioning them to 6, which may only be 1 card, but it is a bit of extra disruption that can be very, very relevant. So then the only thing you have to really have to worry about is Zero Sick, or Flutes hitting good stuff, so we just want to try to use our refinements to discard our extra Pokemon as much as possible. As long as you get the Pal Pad off, I mean, if you can play 4 Turo in a game, it's going to be crazy. Even if you like draw the Pal Pad when you only have 1 Turo in discard, and you want to risk it getting like Aeried or Sistered later, so you just want to Pal Pad the single Turo in, that's still going to be enough a lot of the time. 3 Turo is still going to get you enough energy back to usually beat Snorlax, so. Regidrago, this matchup, I think it's favorable now that they can't really try Frostio early game. A lot of times that wouldn't be correct for them anyways, but the fact that they just don't even have the option now, and that's how you can lose to them a lot of the time, because now if they try Frost, you just Budew, and then they can't attack next turn, and you can just rebuild your board behind that. That's just like a really big nerf for them in the matchup. As long as you can slow them down for a couple of turns with Budew so that you can get some Kirlias and a Gardevoir established, I think that the matchup is like completely fine. You'll be able to like just pick off their draw Pokemon and Iono them later on. It's not like free, but Budew just buys you enough time that like if you played the matchup last format as Gardevoir, you know that like the matchup was not good. But if you set up, like if you had like a strong board as Gardevoir, then the matchup felt completely fine. And basically now with Budew, you should always be able to set up a pretty strong board into them. Raging Bolt, another very favorable matchup. You can take a one-shot with Drifloon at some point. They have a lot of two-price Pokemon they're reliant on putting down that you can knock out with Miracle Force plus Adrenabrain. You're going to have an only single prize board early, so they're not going to take a significant prize lead. And in a pinch, you can slow them down with Budew. Cloth matchup, also favorable. It's definitely closer than it was last format, now that they can, like, Budew to take knockouts on you, and you might just, like, whiff Gardevoir EX, Raw Draw. Or, of course, there's going to be, like, a certain percentage of games where they donk you. But I find that with this list, the matchup is fairly favorable. I think that, like, if they're playing, like, my Cloth list specifically is pretty equipped to deal with Gardevoir with, like, the Iron Valiant EX. I haven't seen most people playing that still. So really, and like the top 8 lists, or I think it was the top 4 list even from Merida Regionals, didn't play the Iron Valiant EX, so they don't have a way to one-shot a Gardevoir EX with no damage on it, which makes the matchup so much better. With the Iron Valiant on the Cloth list, it definitely gets a lot closer, because they have more options when you actually get to play the game of still beating you. But I still think the matchup is like fine, even if they have the Valiant. They still need to donk you most of the time in order to have... or, like, be able to get a couple Budew knockouts early on, take a significant prize lead before you set up to beat you. Especially because we can Iono, like, more than 3 times. And we have the multiple Turos to try to get, like, multiple extra Munkidori plays off. I think the matchup is fairly solid. Ancient Box. So this is a matchup where they're super, super item reliant. We can definitely slow them down with Budew early, but generally your game plan is like just bring up a Pokemon like Greninja ideally, or something else that needs to retreat. Iono them to low hand sizes, and then Roaring Scream their Roaring Moon with energy on them, so they have to find a way to the active and a way to power up a new Roaring Moon. If they go for Petra NTX, and that's just a free 2 prize cards for you, you can even Bravery Charm your Scream Tail and hit that, bring the Greninja back up 200 on the Petra NTX. So if they bench Radiant Greninja, I think the matchup is like even more free. I think that like if you don't set up well, you can just Budew them early into Oblivion, and that's pretty bad for them as well. If they have all of their energy either on board or in discard, and you bring up a Pokemon like Greninja, and you Budew them, then they have to bench Petra NTX to get out of the active because they don't have any more energy to retreat with, and under item lock they don't have any way to recover energy, at least other than Sada, which can't attach to the Greninja. So you have so many options in this matchup. The Ionos are so strong against them. And you can just Turo your Gardevoir EX out of play late game after you've powered up an attacker so that they can't take like easy 2 prize turns by counter-catching up Gardevoir EX. Even matchups, we have the Dragapult Dusknoir matchup. I think this matchup might even be slightly Gardevoir favored. I find that like I usually win this matchup when I play it, but when I play it from the other side, I find that I can usually find lines to like if depends on the Dragapult list, honestly. Like, some Dragapult lists are just built to deal with Gardevoir a lot better than others. And generally speaking, I think it's fairly even. I think that basically you're trying to take some, like, extra prizes. You're trying to limit their Duskull usage by either knocking them out with, like, Cresselia or Screamtail or... ideally not Screamtail, but like if you have to in a pinch, you can Screamtail to disrupt their board. But usually you're trying to just like Cresselia the Duskulls or Adrenabrain the Duskulls. Later, like end game, take your last 2 prize cards on a Dragapult with Drifloon. You might have 2-shot a Dragapult at some point, but if they bench like a Fessendipity or something like that, you can take an easy 2 prize cards on that at some point with Miracle Force. And you're just using Adrenabrain and Cresselia to keep your board as healthy as possible, while you also getting extra damage onto your opponent's Pokemon to set them up to be in Miracle Force range. The only thing that makes it close is that, like, they can just, like, high roll, like, get a bunch of Dusknoirs out. That, like, lists with very, like, thicker Dusknoir lines, like, my Dragapult list plays, like, 3/2/2 Dusknoir, that can be a lot scarier for you. Just because they can threaten to knock out so many Pokemon early on. They can take, like, 3 prize turns on Gardevoir Kirlia really easily. So you have to have a lot stronger setups to beat thick Dusknoir lines. Honestly, I like to go for Budew early in this matchup, even though they will probably be able to knock it out all the time, and they might be able to take a free prize card on it. It's still usually worth it to just like prevent Dusknoir early on, because that's like typically how you lose. They like knock out multiple Kirlias really quickly, and you just don't get set up. If you use Budew so that you have time to set up your monkeys and multiple Kirlias and your Gardevoir, so they can't just like board wipe you, they're usually fine. I mean, a lot of time they can't get around the Budew either. When they use when they Phantom Dive. If they Phantom Dive while your Budew is active, and they're not just, like, picking it off with a Phantom Dive on the bench, then, like, yeah, that's, like, great for you, right? Even Badew's not, like, who cares that it only has 30 HP? they're hitting it for 200 anyways, so it's like, I'm happy to give up the Budew as free prize to stop them from Dusknoiring early game. Then Miraidon, I'd say it's fairly even. It might be slightly, very slightly Miraidon favored. But generally speaking, as long as you can pull off the Mawile line, it's completely fine. Also, if they whiff Term an attack, or whiff an attack at any point, and then you can just take the prize lead, and then you're also completely fine. You just play around Pheasantipity as much as possible. And then, of course, most games you should be able to reliably just go for the Mawile line and just retreat lock them. If they're playing 2 switch card, then the matchup can be, like, obviously you can't really use Mawile, or they're playing the Minior. Like, they have some techs that sometimes they play to get around Mawile. They can be really tough, but you also still always have the chance of them just missing turn 1 attack. Another thing is that, like, if they go first, because if you in the flip, you should definitely be going second into them. If they go first and they, like, whiff Generator, they don't get enough energy on an Iron Hands to threaten attack next turn, then you can just, like, Budew them so they can't use more generators. And then you are safe to, like, set up your board. And then as long as you set up your board and they don't take an attack, then you can go ahead and take the first 2 prize cards with Miracle Force in your next turn. Unbearable matchups. We have Dragon Bolt Charizard. They have Lost Vacuum usually, which can be annoying for your Bravery Charm. They play multiple Ionos. The Charizard can one-shot your Gardevoir. They don't have, like, a ton of easy Pokemon to pick off. They can just, like, not bench Budew early and try, like, just have a bunch of Drac Cloaks so that your Ionos aren't that effective. The fact that they have, like, easy ways to one-shot your Gardevoir, and they can also go the Dragapult line and just take multi-prize knockouts, makes the matchup a lot tougher than, like, Dragapult Dusknoir. Especially sometimes they have, like, a thin, like, Dusknoir line of their own, which makes things even more difficult. Definitely a very winnable matchup. Like, if you can set up for, if you can, like, 2-shot a Dragapult, Drifloon and Charizard for a knockout, like, then maybe you can find some lines there, but we aren't, like, prepared for this matchup that well with our list. And usually they can afford to, like, either not bench a Lumineon early on, or Turo or collapse away their Lumineon after they use it, and that way we're gonna have to knock out 2 Pokemon, maybe even 3 sometimes, with, like, 320, 330 HP, which can be really, really tough for us to do with just 1 Drifloon and 1 Bravery Charm. So this matchup is definitely, like, one of our tougher ones. Then Gouging Fire. Matchup, I think that's on paper. I know a lot of people think this matchup might be fine for them. The Gouging Fire player actually 8-0'd Gardevoir at Merida Regionals. He 2-0'd 4 Gardevoir EX players. Because the matchup is very good for Gouging Fire. Test it, and you'll, like, against, like, someone who actually knows how to play Gouging Fire and, like, playing it pretty decently, and you'll see that, like, Gouging Fire is really tough for Gardevoir to deal with. A Bravery Charm Gouging Fire is not easy for you to knock out. If you knock it out with Drifloon, they can take a free prize on that with Adrenabrain. If you don't fully heal off of your Gardevoir with double Adrenabrain, then they can just use 1 Adrenabrain to set up for a Blaze Blitz 290 knockout. They have the Delphox option, so if you don't get Manaphy down, they can just, like, turn 1 Delphox you. Or just Delphox you at any point for 2 prizes, and they can do where Gardevoir lists with Fluttermane will try to go, like, double Adrenabrain on your bench Kirlia, Countercatcher another one, and Fluttermane, Hex Hurl, knockout double Kirlia. Gouging Fire can do that too. They play 2 Monkey, they play 2 Dark Energy, they play Fluttermane. They can go for Fluttermane and take multiple prize cards against you with a single prizer, with no damage on it. They can keep their Pokemon very healthy with their Munkidoris. It's really tough to set up the multi-prize turns here. It's also really tough to play around Pheasantipity like you typically would against these, like, big 2-prize decks, because the Adrenabrain, you hit the Pheasantipity for 190, and then suddenly they just go Adrenabrain the Pheasantipity off, and now you need to Adrenabrain twice to it to finish it off. And then if you're Adrenabraining twice the Fez, then you're probably not knocking out whatever they're actually attacking you with. So it's really hard to take this sort of normal approach that you would against 2-prize lines. I think that, there's definitely, you just have to use a lot of disruption. You have to get the Manaphy down, and you have to hope that some of your disruption sticks, because I think that, like, if they set up super, super well, it's really, really tough. Ideally, don't take knockouts to free up bench space for them on stuff like Entei. You just want to, like, try to play to a multi-prize turn, because you don't want to give them access to second Munkidori. If you get 2 Munkidori set up, the matchup becomes, like, way, way worse. So if you can bench lock them out of second Munkidori, maybe they can't get it set up early and they need to play other cards to set up. That's really, really good for you. So that's sort of like the best angle you can try to go for there. Or maybe they like have to discard a couple of Bravery Charms early, or like one of the Bravery Charms early. They don't have much access to that. That can give you more options as well. But yeah, generally speaking, this matchup is way harder than people might think. And obviously, there's not really a Mawile in there because they play 4-Jet in a switch chart. But that's it. I mean, I still don't think Gouging Fire would be incredibly popular, even though it came second. And I do think it's like kind of underrated after playing it more since it came second. And the Dragon Ball Charizard build is also not like super popular. There's definitely some people playing it, but it's not a very popular deck. And then even matchups into Dragon Ball, Dusknoir, and Miraidon, which are both like probably top 3 decks, along with Gardevoir. And then favorable matchups into basically everything else. I mean, it can't really complain. Gardevoir does not have a lot of bad matchups. Your bad matchups are not very popular. I think Gardevoir is still an incredibly safe play. It is still one of my top picks for any event. I think that like if you're a good Gardevoir player, there's very little reason not to play it. Like the metagame is still poised for it. There's tech options to beat everything. You just have to sort of switch them around depending on what you expect to play against. And I think this list is incredibly strong. Like every time I play this list, it just feels incredibly cracked. You can try to change a couple things. I know people don't like a lot of these tech card inclusions. I've tried like Pal Pad, Rare Candy, or only through Arven, playing the researches. But like, trust me, if you have any faith in me at all, just try the 60 exactly as it is, and give it a solid chance, and it might just surprise you. The deck flows so beautifully. If you enjoyed this and want to check out my socials or any of my other content, you can find all of that in the link tree in the description below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.